The perfect is a verb form that indicates that an action or circumstance occurred earlier than the time under consideration, often focusing attention on the resulting state rather than on the occurrence itself. An example of a perfect construction is I have made dinner. Although this gives information about a prior action, the focus is likely to be on the present consequences of that action. The word perfect in this sense means completed. In traditional grammar, particularly with regard to Latin and ancient Greek, the perfect is a particular conjugated verb form, traditionally considered to be one of the tenses. In modern analysis it is seen as combining the expression of tense with aspectual information. The Greek perfect contrasted with the aorist and the imperfect, and thus referred to completed events with present consequences like the English have-has. The Latin perfect contrasted only with the imperfect, and was thus used to mean both have-has done something, and did something. Other related forms are the pluperfect, denoting an event prior to a past time of reference, and the future perfect, for an event prior to a future time of reference. In modern grammars, particularly of English, perfect denotes an aspect independent of tense. The form corresponding to the traditional perfect is then called the present perfect, while that corresponding to the pluperfect is called the past perfect. The formation of perfect constructions as found in English, using forms of an auxiliary verb together with the past participle of the main verb, is paralleled in a number of other modern European languages. Perfect can be denoted by the glossing abbreviation PERF or PRF. It should not be confused with the perfective aspect, which refers to the viewing of an action as a single event. To avoid confusion with the perfective, the perfect is occasionally called the retrospective. Perfect as an aspect, in some analyses, perfect is identified as one of the grammatical aspects. In the perfect aspect, the event being referred to is viewed as already completed at the time of reference. It should not be confused with the perfective aspect, which marks a situation as a single event without internal structure, and does not imply prior occurrence as the perfect aspect does. The perfect also contrasts with the prospective aspect, which encodes the present relevance or anticipation of a future event. While the perfect is a relatively uniform category cross-linguistically, its relation to the experiential and resultative aspects is complex. The latter two are not simply restricted cases of the perfect. The perfect is not necessarily incompatible with other grammatical aspects. In English, for example, it can be combined with the progressive aspect, wherein an event is viewed as temporary and ongoing. A form such as the present perfect progressive I have been working combines the meanings expressed by the two aspects. Viewing my working as an ongoing process, but one which is now completed. If perfect is viewed as an aspect, then the verb forms traditionally called just perfect in fact combine the perfect aspect with present tense. The pluperfect and future perfect forms combine perfect aspect with past and future tense respectively. This analysis is reflected more explicitly in the terminology commonly used in modern English grammars, which refer to present perfect, past perfect and future perfect. However, not all uses of perfect verb forms necessarily express this perfect aspect. Sometimes they are simply used as expressions of past tense, that is, as preterites. This applies to some uses of the Latin perfect, and also to the modern German perfect. For more details on the meanings of perfects in various languages, see the following sections. Perfect constructions with auxiliaries. A number of modern European languages exhibit a parallel type of perfect construction, formed with an auxiliary verb in combination with the past participle of the main verb. The auxiliary may be a verb meaning have or a verb meaning be arrived, literally I am arrived. The have perfect developed from a construction where the verb meaning have denoted possession, and the past participle was an adjective modifying the object, as in I have the work done. This came to be renalized, with the object becoming the object of the main verb, and the participle becoming a dependent of the have verb, as in I have done the work. The construction could then be generalized to be used also with intransitive verbs. A vestige of the original interpretation is preserved in some languages in the form of inflection on the participle to agree with the gender and number of the object. The be perfect developed similarly, from a construction where the verb meaning be was an ordinary copula and the participle expressed a resultative state of the subject. It is consequently used mostly with verbs that denote a change in the state or location of the subject, and in some languages the participle inflects to agree with the gender and number of the subject. Languages which use these constructions can generally inflect the auxiliary to produce different verb forms. For the perfect aspect, the pluperfect or past perfect is produced with the auxiliary in the past tense, the future perfect with the auxiliary in the future tense, and so on. These include non-finite forms such as perfect infinitives. The basic perfect form, with the auxiliary in the present tense, may specifically carry the meaning of perfect aspect, as in English. However, in some languages it is used more generally as a past tense, as in French and German. The use of auxiliaries and meaning of the constructions in various languages are described below. English uses have as the auxiliary. The use of be with some intransitive verbs is archaic. For more details, see the section on English below. German uses haben as the auxiliary with most verbs, and seen with some intransitives, including the copular scene itself. The German present perfect construction is called the perfect, and for most verbs is the usual past tense. For details, see German verbs. Other Germanic languages have similar constructions, such as the perfect of Swedish and the perfectum of Dutch. French uses avoir as the auxiliary with most verbs, but uses it with reflexive verbs and with a certain number of intransitive verbs. The past participle is inflected to agree in gender and number with the subject when it is used, and with a direct object when avoir is used, but then only when the object precedes the verb. The construction with present perfect form is called the passer copyright composer copyright, and is the usual past tense for completed events, corresponding to both the English present perfect and to the simple past. For more details, see passer copyright composer copyright. Italian uses avoir and essere as auxiliaries, distributed in much the same way as avoir and être in French. The participle agrees with the subject when essere is used, and with a preceding pronoun direct object when avoir is used. The present perfect is often used also for completed events where English would use the simple past. For details, see Italian grammar. Spanish uses haber as the auxiliary with all verbs. The present perfect form is called the preter copyright rito perfecto, and is used similarly to the English present perfect. See Spanish verbs. Portuguese uses to or have as the auxiliary. In modern speech to is more common. See Portuguese grammar. Celtic languages have a somewhat different type of perfect construction, where a word meaning after is used together with the verbal noun. This is described under Welsh grammar and Irish conjugation. By analogy with this construction, sentences of the form I'm after eating are used in Irish English. Perfect in particular languages. Proto-Indo-European equals, in reconstructions of the Proto-Indo-European language, the verb form that has traditionally been called perfect in fact signified stative aspect. The name was assigned based on similarity to the Greek or Latin perfect tense, before the stative nature of the form was fully recognized. For details of its formation, see Proto-Indo-European verbs. Ancient Greek equals, the ancient Greek perfect developed from the PIE perfect form. In both cases the stem is typically formed by reduplication. In Greek, however, it took on a true perfect meaning, indicating an action with a permanent result. The effect of the action is seen in the resulting state. This state may belong to either the subject or the object. The meaning is therefore similar to the English present perfect, although usage of the Greek perfect is rather narrower than in English. Greek also has a pluperfect and a future perfect, although their use is rare. Other verb forms used in ancient Greek to refer to past circumstances were the aorist, which was used simply to report past events, and the imperfect. For details of the formation and use of the Greek perfect, see ancient Greek verbs. For the perfect found in modern Greek, see modern Greek verbs. Latin equals, in Latin the PIE aorist merged with a perfect. Consequently the Latin perfect tense serves both as a true perfect, and as a simple preterite, merely reporting a past event. It contrasts with the imperfect, which denotes uncompleted past actions or states. Latin also has pluperfect and future perfect forms. For details of how all of these forms are made, see Latin conjugation. English equals. In English, the perfect is made with the form of the auxiliary verb have together with the past participle of the main verb. The auxiliary can be modified for tense and mood, and can also appear in non-finite forms, thus giving rise to a number of constructions which combine perfect aspect with other verbal properties. I have eaten. He has eaten, I had eaten, I will have eaten, I would have eaten. That he have eaten. 2. Have eaten, having eaten. The perfect can also be combined with another aspect that is marked in English the progressive aspect. In perfect progressive constructions, the perfect auxiliary is followed by the past participle been and the present participle of the main verb. As before, the perfect auxiliary can appear in various tenses, moods and non-finite forms. I have been eating. He has been eating, I had been eating, etc. Perfect aspect can also be combined with the marking of passive voice. Here the participle of the main verb is replaced by the corresponding participle of be followed by the past participle of the main verb. It has been eaten. It will have been eaten. It has been being eaten. Perfect progressive passives, as in the last example, therefore involve two consecutive participles of the auxiliary verb be. These constructions are rarely used. The implications of the present perfect are similar to those of the simple past. The simple past is generally used when the occurrence has a specific past time frame either explicitly stated, or implied by the context. The present perfect, on the other hand, is used when the assumed time frame lasts up until the present moment. I have written 2 novels. You have done no work this morning. It is often used to draw attention to the consequences rather than the action. I've built a tree house. Perfect progressive forms are used mainly to refer to an action continuing up to the time of reference, again with emphasis on its consequences, or its duration. They may express interrupted activities. The perfect infinitive can be used after modal verbs with various meanings, chiefly to express modality with regard to past events. You should have done that. She might have seen it. With would it forms are contrary to fact past conditional, as in she would could have done it if she had tried. For more information on such constructions, see English modal verbs. For more details on the usage of the various perfect constructions in English, see uses of English verb forms. See also, future tense, grammatical aspect, grammatical tense, imperfect, past tense, perfective aspect, prophetic perfect tense, relative and absolute tense. References. External links, 6 perfect tenses explained plus exercises, Greek tenses.